Welcome. In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to crochet in the round. You can see here we have just a basic crocheted circle. I'll talk about in a minute here what those little markers are. This here is a chair slider that I made to make it easier to go across floors with wooden chairs, and just a mug cover. If you're making a full project, you'll need a scissors and your yarn needle. Otherwise, I'm just going to be using a crochet hook and some thread. Make sure that your crochet hook is the correct size for the yarn that you're using, and you can find that right on your label of your yarn. Casting onto our hook, I just loop it around and pull through and pull that knot really tight so it doesn't come undone. I then chain 4 stitches. This is pretty standard with any round that you're going to do, is the 4 chain stitches. Then I loop back around and insert my hook into that first stitch and pull a slip stitch through. Now I have my circle made, the very center of my circle. So I'm going to chain stitch up 3, which will be the first double stitch of my first row. Once you've completed those 3 chain stitches, you can start double stitching into the very center of your circle. I don't go into any of the chain stitch parts. I just crochet right into the center as it makes it look a lot nicer. I also gather in my ends into my work as well. I found that you want to put between 12 and 16 stitches as the very first row of your circle. For me, it depends on if I'm doing a pattern of 3 or 4. 12 is divisible by 3, and 16 is more easily divisible by 4. So for this project, I'm doing 12 stitches. So I've done 11 double stitches because that first chain stitch counts as the 12th one. So I'm going to put a slip stitch in there to connect those. Now from here, you can make your circle one of 2 ways. The first method is by going into a spiral, so you would just keep crocheting around and around without stopping. First, you will do a chain stitch and a single stitch in your first stitch area to build up that ramp to spiral, and then you can begin doing double crochets. Now you can kind of see we've built this ramp, so you can just keep crocheting as you go, not stopping to do any chain stitches. Now, if you are planning on doing this method on your project, I recommend putting in a stitch marker. That way you know where your spiral began. The second method, and I've pulled out my stitches and moved it back to the very first row, is by building up. So you have rows upon rows. So to do this, we're going to do 3 chain stitches. And now you can see kind of what the stitching looks like of our circle. We're going to start putting double stitches in that first whole stitch. So this second row, we're going to put 2 double stitches per 1 stitch on that first row. So row 1 is going to be 12 stitches, and row 2 is going to be 24 stitches total. Now I've just completed the last double stitch in that whole row. So our chain stitch counts as 1, so I need my 24th stitch, and I'm going to put that in that really tight space right before that chain stitch. So now I have 23 double crochets and a chain stitch for 24 stitches. Then I'm going to slip stitch all of those together and chain stitch up 3 up to my next row. For our third row, it's going to be every other stitch is 2. So 2 double stitches in the first one, 1 double stitch here, 2 double stitches, 1 double stitch, 2 double stitches, 1 double stitch. So we're going to progressively reduce how many double stitches we're putting into a single stitch from that row before. And this will make a little bit more sense when I pull up that yellow piece again with all of those markings on it. I'm just going to do a partial here, but if you look closely, you can see it's 2 double stitches and a single stitch. Now, as you get going and you really look at the pattern that this is making, each row you're going to increase how many single stitches you put in. So that row we just did was every other. The next row is going to be every 2 stitches. And it'll make this nice kind of V pattern going up. And if I had markers on all the other first stitches of each row, you'd see that it would come out and just kind of radiate out. So this first row here is every single stitch gets 2, and then the next row is every other stitch gets 2. The row after that is every second stitch gets 2. You can see there's 2 stitches between. Every third stitch here and every fourth stitch here is 2 stitches in the row previously. Now this adding stitches method is great if you're just making a big old circle. If you want to ruffle your pattern, you'll put more double stitches per row in. So instead of doing the adding 1 every time, you'll maybe every other row do a single stitch. That way it'll ruffle pretty nice if that's what you want. But if you don't want ruffles, you're going to want to decrease the amount of double stitches that you put in. Now, if you want to move your work up and get a nice sharp edge like this little chair cover here, it's actually 16 stitches that I put in at very bottom, and then that next row is also 16, and every one going up is 16, so it makes just a nice little cup there. This is a spiral one that I did, and I just went around and around and around until I got it to the width that I needed for my cup, and then I started not adding any more stitches into my circle. So you can see, since I did the spiral, it's not quite level on the top, but you can't really tell. I didn't mind it, and I left it like that because I didn't want that chain stitch in there kind of ruining my pattern either. So you can use this very basic pattern to wing just about anything, as I custom made this cup to fit. I didn't have an actual pattern for it. I just made it to size. I hope you found this video tutorial helpful. If you want to see more of what I do, hit that like and subscribe button, and thanks for watching.